Well, if you're doing anything you shouldn't be, you're going to have to be very careful, because apparently the government is going to be doing what I like to call the ultimate crackdown, or the ultimate punishment, because unfortunately for quite a lot of people it could be the end of their freedom. So what am I going on about then? Well, benefits. They're obviously designed to help people get back off their bums and go to work, aren't they? Unless of course you're on the sick for genuine reasons. However, there are a few people out there, and a small minority admittedly, who, let's just say, try to game the system and claim things which they're not entitled to, and these guys are going to be given a pretty good reason why it's best probably to stop doing that. And I say that because according to this article it says benefit cheats could be banned from driving. Yes, that's right, banned, if they don't pay back money owed as ministers vow to turn off the tap. Well, I don't know about you, but that certainly is a surprise, especially coming from a Labour government, because it does seem, doesn't it, over recent years, how they just seem to love to pay people to sit on their bums. However, this apparently is under a new government drive to curb welfare fraud, and a Department for Work and Pensions, the DWP, will also be able to recover money directly from fraudsters' bank accounts in what could be dubbed the biggest fraud crackdown in a generation. It certainly will be, wouldn't it? But they have to be sure, don't they, that that person is committing benefit fraud, because if they're not, then just think about it. One day you can drive to work, the next day you're kind of screwed. But on the other hand, of course, if you're actually doing your best to look for work, then of course that kind of puts a big bollard in your way, a very Keir Starmer-shaped bollard, doesn't it? Although, if you are committing benefit fraud, then reserves your bloody right, in my opinion. The Public Authorities, the Fraud, Error and Recovery Bill, which would put the measures into law, is due to be introduced into Parliament on Wednesday, and it will save the taxpayer around £1.5 billion over the next 5 years, the DWP estimates. Well, no doubt, of course, a part of the reason for doing this is because whilst they keep banging on about this £22 billion black hole, they keep spending money willy-nilly, don't they? And therefore probably want to save a bit more where they can. Although, to be honest with you, there might also be a privacy concern if they can't enter people's bank accounts. Although that might not be the case, because it says here the DWP, however, insists it will not have direct access to people's bank accounts. So what access will it actually have? Because even though it might not be direct, they still might have some sort of access, surely. The courts could apparently suspend fraudsters' driving licence following applications by the DWP if they owe welfare debts of more than £1,000 and have ignored repeated requests to pay it back. Well, this surely should come as a massive deterrent for anyone who's even thinking about committing benefit fraud, and about time too, in my opinion. Especially if the people ignore the requests, because let's face it, it does seem quite often, doesn't it, that the government, or the courts, shall we say, are very, very slack when it comes to actually giving people proper justice. Unless, of course, you put a nasty, hurty comment on Facebook or anything like that, eh? Unfortunately for those guys, they do seem to be feeling the full force of the 1984 treatment, whilst people who should have a sentence for either vandalising things for an eco-protest or committing nasty crimes, shall we say, they just seem to get off scot-free or very light sentences, don't they? So hopefully this is now a turning point, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. The department, it does say, will also have the powers to get bank statements from people they believe have enough cash to pay back welfare debts, but are refusing to do so. And Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, said, "We are turning off the tap to criminals who cheat the system and steal law-abiding taxpayers' money." And she added, "This means greater consequences for fraudsters who cheat and evade the system, including, as a last resort in the most serious cases, removing their driving licence, backed up by new and important safeguards, including reporting mechanisms and independent oversight to ensure the powers are used proportionally and safely." Well, of course, it does sound they really mean business, but then again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember Keir Starmer or whoever else saying, "Security Border Force Command will smash the gangs, tackle the people or whatever and stop the boats." Well, just look how that went. I mean, I don't know about you, but it doesn't seem like anything has been done so far, has it? Hey, so hopefully this might be different. And you have to bear in mind, don't you, that whilst on one hand it is good that they're cracking down on these fraudsters or people even considering it, on the other hand, it is invading people's privacy, so surely they should have quite a lot of evidence before they're even allowed to do such a thing, in my opinion. And in an attempt, it says, to provide assurance about the bill, ministers will bring forward codes of practice for those who will use the new powers. The plan will also introduce new oversight and reporting mechanisms to monitor how the powers are used. Because, yeah, let's face it, we don't want someone letting the power go to their heads, do we, and invading anyone's privacy who shouldn't have it invaded at all. Elsewhere in the bill, apparently the Public Sector Fraud Authority will be given more powers to tackle the COVID-era fraud. Yes, face it, quite a lot of that seems to have happened, doesn't it, eh? Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, welcomed the measures and claimed there were a continuation of the Conservatives' work in power. So it does make you wonder, doesn't it, just how much of this is Labour's idea and how much it was already being started by the Tories. And she added, and this is actually quite important, but having knowingly appointed a convicted fraudster to his cabinet, Keir Starmer cannot be trusted to get tough on fraud. Well, that is a very good point indeed, isn't it? And for anyone who doesn't know, that's about an MP who resigned recently over fraud, although unfortunately the name escapes me. But that is a very good question that Keir Starmer really does need to answer, especially if he knew anything about her previous conviction. And get this, Labour must do more to tackle the spiralling welfare budget and explain why they are yet to match our £12 billion in savings, raising the prospect that Rachel Reeves, or Rachel Thieves in my opinion, will be back later on again this year with another tax raid on working people. And unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I too think that we haven't seen the last of her tax raids, because admittedly, yes, she didn't put up income tax or VAT, but it does make me wonder if they will soon be in her sights, as well as possibly fuel duty, eh?